Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Rachel West, founder and personal growth coach for empowering growth and author.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Ann. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with.
I am that guy. I'm Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we have Rachel West, and she's the founder and personal growth coach of Empowerment Growth, and she's also an author. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
I'm glad. So what is empowering growth?
So empowering growth. So I opened my coaching business in January 2020, and my focus is mindset and mental health. I help individuals discover the root cause as to what's holding them back and preventing them from moving forward in those areas of life that they struggle with the most. So that could be through an addiction, depression, anxiety, self-sabotage, negative self-talk, those things that just keep us stuck and don't allow us to move forward.
That is something that people do struggle with, and I think the negative self-talk is a big one.
It is, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree. I think that holds a lot of people back from life, period.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're also a master timeline therapy practitioner.
Yes.
So can you tell us exactly what that is?
Yeah, so I'm a master practitioner of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and timeline therapy. So let me explain NLP first. So NLP is the science of how your brain processes information through your five senses. It's the science of how you communicate with yourself and with others, and the science of your internal programming. So those are your behaviors, your attitude, your habits, your perceptions, and your beliefs in life. And then timeline therapy goes hand in hand with NLP. It's a holistic technique used with working with your unconscious mind to discover that root cause. It's basically the use of imagination to help you work through experiences of the past that you may or may not want to be dealing with. So basically, your brain is like a filing cabinet. It stores all of your memories from the time that it's formed in your brain or in your filing cabinet. So the timeline therapy allows you to dig through that filing cabinet or your brain memories and pull out the memory that you want to work on.
Not to oversimplify, but I'm just trying to get it in my mind. So you've got this issue now when you're 45 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So you kind of go back, say maybe back to your childhood.
Yes.
And something happened, something was said.
Yes.
They experienced something that like created this belief. And so you go, okay, here's the problem. And this is what happened. This is why you are this way now because of this event. We need to change your perception of that event, I guess.
Correct.
Is that
you are exactly like right? Yes.
30,000 foot view.
Yes, it is. That is exactly right. Yes.
Okay. And
I would imagine though.
How hard was that?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say it must be sometimes difficult because, I mean, when you're talking about the brain, how many files it's got in it. Luckily, I'm an organized person, but still to that point, there are things that are brought up to me and I'm thinking, I can't find that file. I don't know where it went to.
Yeah, so our brain, our unconscious mind, so we have our conscious mind, we have our unconscious mind. The conscious mind thinks it runs our life and only runs 10%, where the unconscious mind runs 90%. So the unconscious mind's job is to protect us. So that's why we forget a memory. We don't even know it's there sometimes. because its job is to protect us. And if we're not ready to remember that event, then it's not going to do that. So once you're ready, it will present it.
Curious though, because I know, and this may be off topic, but I'm curious as to why, and it's with me, and I've noticed it with my daughter too, where there's been some good events. Like my sister will say, "Hey, do you remember this concert we went to?" Or I'll ask my daughter, "Do you remember when we did this?" And it's no, can't remember it.
Yeah. So what happens there is, so in a single day, we have 90,000 thoughts come in our brain every single day. 80,000 of those thoughts are negative thoughts, or about things that we don't want to happen. So as these things are coming at us, the lights on in the room, I'm sitting on the chair, my heart's pumping, blood's flowing, my eyes are blinking, I'm swallowing, like all of these things are happening. You're hearing my voice. So as all of these things are coming at me, my brain is going to keep 5 to 9 of those things. And it's going to discard the rest, because the rest is not important to me. So Roy's 5 to 9 are going to be different from mine. Lori Ann's 5 to 9 are going to be different from mine. So maybe that event wasn't as important to you as it was your sister. So she remembered those few things, and your brain's like, that's not too important to me right now. I don't need it. So that's what happens.
There you go.
It's interesting because one of my sons, when you start talking about, oh, you remember back, in like when he was growing up, and I mean, he just says, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I don't remember. I mean, I said, you were alive. How could you not? You got to remember some things. He just, I don't know. I don't remember. And to me, that's weird. But saying that, I've talked to several other people that they'll say, oh yeah, I don't remember stuff when I was a kid. I mean, you don't remember everything, but still there's things you remember.
Yeah.
They go, oh no, I don't hardly ever remember being a kid,
Yeah.
And to me, that's just weird.
Well, so it's what I just explained, where people are keeping different things, and some people will choose to say, I don't remember, or I don't know, because they don't really want to answer. Maybe they have trauma and they don't want to remember before a certain point of their life. So they just block that part out. And even if they do, they'll tell you they don't, because they don't want you to start asking more questions and, bringing up more things that they may not want to deal with.
Yeah, I can understand that with my youngest son. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, my daughter too, because she said she doesn't remember much before she was 13. And of course, there was between 9 and 13, there was a divorce that happened. So I think anything before that, and she doesn't even want to remember the happy times when we were as a family, because that likely hurts too much to remember the good, because it's sometimes hard to remember the good as it is the bad. Yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of like me. I mean, I remember a lot of stuff. My brothers and sisters go, how can you remember that? I don't remember that. But that being said, I always say, well, my life didn't start till I started dating my wife. That's where my life started. I can remember,
Yeah.
But I do remember stuff when I was a kid. But I'm always saying, well, I don't know. Till I was 17, I don't remember.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But,
so tell us. Sorry.
That was a happy part. That was a happy part of my childhood when I started dating her.
Yes. Yes.
Not many people can say that, Roy. Happy part of my childhood when I started dating my wife, who I've been with ever since.
Well,
So
I'm sure there's a lot more people like that you know.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I just might ask, Rachel, tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so my book is called The Successful Woman's Mindset, and it's a collaborative book. So it's 21 women, 21 stories of success. And my chapter is called Journey to Your Value Within. And it's all about how events in my life created beliefs or labels within myself. And so I wanted to share my story and specifically point out how an event, what it did for me, if it made me sad, if it created a limiting belief, or I took on this label. And my goal is for the reader to hear my story and to ask themselves, where in my life did the events that I experienced maybe create something within me that I still have today that's no longer serving me. For instance, when I was in kindergarten, I was diagnosed with a learning disability. So a teacher, counselor, doctor, whoever tells you this. So as a 5-year-old, an authoritative figure, you're going to take that on like, yeah, he's right, she's right. So that's what I did. And taking that label of having that learning disability made the belief within myself, oh, well, I'm not as smart as everyone else. And I have this learning disability. So that then funnels into my reading. When I was in grade school and I needed to silently read in class, I couldn't retain what I was reading. I couldn't comprehend it. I needed to go home, read it out loud, so I could hear myself say the words and then process what I was reading. Oh, well, I must read like that because because I have this learning disability. I don't see any other kids reading like this, so I must be the only one. Funnels into writing. Well, how could I be a good writer if I don't read? And I have this learning disability and I'm not as smart as everyone else. So I struggled with writing reports in school. We'd have to have that minimum requirement of words and I never met it. And I was stretching and pulling and doing all of the tricks I could come up with to try to get to that requirement and I never made it. And I started my NLP journey 3 years ago, discovered I never had a learning disability. It was the way that I process information, the way that I learn, and the way I communicate. It wasn't being taught to me in a way that I understood. So therefore, I was a little behind. So I released that label of having a learning disability, of not being as smart as everyone else, which then released that belief I created of not liking to read or being a good reader. I read almost every day now, which released the belief of not being a good writer. Hence, I wrote the chapter in the book and I went over the maximum requirement of words. So my goal was to show people that we take on these beliefs or these labels that we give ourselves or that other people give us, and we hold on to them. And when you identify that you have these beliefs that no longer serve you and you release them, it opens up so much more possibilities for yourself.
Very true. Very well said.
Yeah. I mean, listening to you is like reviewing one of my son's life. I mean, the same thing. However, for him, what I call the turning point for him was once he got out in the workforce and was out in that environment, he's going like, I'm way smarter than these people. I can't believe they don't. And so that when he got out in that pool of workers and found out that I can't believe they don't know this. I know this, they don't. And so for him, that was a total mind shift for him is, hey, I'm not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm smart. I'm smarter than these guys. And his whole uh, personality, his whole demeanor changed from that point on.
Yeah. Good. Good for him.
Yeah.
It's incredible though, because, you know, and coming back to me, it would be my daughter. She struggled through school, and it was like you were saying, Rachel, there's different ways of teaching children. I mean, my oldest one, you know, they could have labeled him with, you know, attention deficit disorder, because he always had to sit in the front by the teacher because he caused so much grief to everyone else. But he was a clown. It was the way he was entertaining, and he just couldn't sit still. I wouldn't always label that as, and that's what I fear about labels. And then my daughter, of course, her brothers had an easier time academically. And I kept telling her, you are street smart. You had $1, you took a bus home, which I really got upset with her in one way because she didn't tell me, but here she is, 9 years old, and she takes her friend. She goes, well, your mother didn't come get us. Let's take the bus. And they got home. And I said, next time, you know, make that $1 call to me though. But the point is that she knew what she was doing. She was very street smart.
Yeah.
You can't always plug somebody into these labels, drives me nuts. However, a mother telling her daughter, honey, you're smarter than you even know. It may not be always reflected academically, but you are. Well, the academics are telling her she's not smart enough. She's not as smart as her brothers. Guess where she's going to take that label from? Not from her mommy, who knows better. Sorry, but I do.
Yeah.
But from those professionals. And that drove me nuts, because I'm going, oh my goodness, this is not you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you're speaking about the way you learn, okay? So when I was in school, I would make these notes and I would go over them. I would spend all day Saturday, Sunday studying this thing, and I would go and you know, I would make, you know, 95, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a guy in my class, he would say, hey, Miller, let me see your notes. He'd read them for 10 minutes. Okay. I studied 2 or 3 days. I made 95. He studied them 10 minutes and he made, you know, 94, 92. You know,
Yeah.
he goes, man, you have great notes. And so he didn't even study. He just, hey, let me see your notes. And he'll read them 10 minutes before class.
Yeah.
And he used to absolutely drive me nuts because I had to study so hard
Yeah.
to get that. And he could do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I would take, Rachel, so what you're doing now, because we had so much fun telling our story, just because this really is very, you know, it's so interesting. But you're helping your clients now with empowering their growth. And how do you do that? So what techniques do you use? I know that you've got the NLP and you've got the timeline. How does that work for you?
So I teach them what they don't know about themselves. So how do you learn specifically? There's 4 different ways that people learn. Visually, they have to see it. Auditory, they have to hear it. Kinesthetic, they have to feel it. And auditory digital, it has to make sense to them. So the majority of the educational system is set up to teach you visually and auditory. So if you are a kinesthetic or auditory digital learner, you seem to be behind because they're not teaching to those students. They're teaching to the other 2. So what you were saying earlier is, could have been diagnosed with ADD. No, he's either a kinesthetic or auditory digital learner. And it's like, oh, this is boring. I don't get it. So I'm just going to act up and do what's fun for me. So it's really important for you to know how you learn, how you communicate, so that you can learn and communicate. And then in a business sense, you can understand where your clients are coming from. In a relationship, where your spouse or family or children are coming from. So it's important for you to know that, so that you can help others and know where others are at and meet them where they're at. The number one thing I learned in my NLP journey was people do the best they can with the tools they have at the time. When I learned that phrase, it opened up so much forgiveness that I had been holding on to, specifically from parents, because I wasn't getting what I wanted. But it wasn't about me, it was about them. And they were doing all parents, you don't like go to the hospital and have your child and the doctor says, here's your book, this is how you parent a child. No, nobody gets that. They do the best they can with what they know. So it's amazing work, just helping people not only on a bigger sense of their mental health and their mindset, but in all areas, the communication, they're helping them through their environment and teaching them tools to get through everyday things that come your way.
Yeah. See, for me, like, you know, reading instructions is hard for me. Let me use IKEA for an example. I don't know if y'all have that where y'all are.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you get this big box, all these pieces and parts. So I can look at the diagrams. Okay, I'm good. I know what it's doing. You know, but if you got to read all these instructions, you know, I'll tell my wife, here, you read the instructions. I'm gonna start putting it together. You know, and she'll say, no, stop, wait a minute. And then learning when I was at school, you know, show me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do it, or show me and tell me why I'm doing it, and I'm good. But if you give me a book and says step 1, step 2, I'm lost in step 3. I'm like, I gotta start all over. It's hard for me.
Yeah. So you're a visual learner first, then an auditory. So if they're giving you the auditory digital, which are the details, which I want, you don't care about that. No. You want to see it first, and then you want to hear what you got to do. Yeah. The other stuff, it doesn't matter to you.
Exactly.
So how important is it for you to know that about yourself? And how important is that for you to know that about your spouse, your children, your coworkers, your friends? Very important.
Yeah. I wish I would have known that when I was going through school.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. That's where you're saying though, Roy, this was where it worked perfectly because Barbara, she likes the instructions, you like the visuals. So that's where you work together really well. Yeah. That's where you're saying, Rachel, if you understand, and if somebody has a strength that you don't have, the other person together, it makes a perfect fit.
Yeah. 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 She's very analytical, you know, by the book, you know, she wants to know the big picture. You know, I don't care about the big picture. Let me have this little snapshot here is all I'm worried about.
I would imagine though, Rachel, that there's some people that have even a combination. I mean, there's certain things that I learn better visually. There's other ones that I just need to do, play around. And because I mean, that's why I love computers, and I can spend, maybe it'll take me 10 hours to get there, but I'll also take the instructions. Like I use a little bit of everything, like versus, you know, whether it's verbal, whether it's written down, whatever. So I kind of combine everything together. I would imagine though there's quite a few people that will, not quite a few, but there are some that is not just really prioritized on one level. Some of them will have a balance of a few together. Does that make sense?
Yes. So everybody has a primary one. And the goal is for you to be able to tap into any of them at any time. So if you're doing that automatically without knowing, good for you. And in different contexts, you could use a different way of learning. So could be this way in business, could be this way in personal, could be this way in your relationship. So you also want to bring that into play and know that each one could have a different primary.
Interesting. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you became a domestic violence victim advocate?
Yes, I can. So I say I stumbled into my purpose on the path I thought was my purpose. So before I started coaching, I owned a graphic design business for 4 years. And I thought, I was like, that's what I went to school for. I got my degree in it. I was like, yes, this is my path. This is my journey. I'm happy. I'm good at it. However, I stumbled into NLP, had no idea what it was. My business partner said, hey, there's this boot camp, come into town. It's NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I think it would help us in our business. We should go. And so I was like, okay, sure. What do I got to lose? She's my partner. I trust her. Let's go. So I originally started studying NLP for my graphic design business, for the communication side. Oh, if I can learn the different ways that people communicate and process information, I can write marketing messages to reach them on a different level. Okay, so going through the program, I discovered that's not my path anymore, and that I wanted to start my coaching business, focus on mental health, specialty, and addiction. So a lot of my family members have and had addictions. So I grew up seeing alcohol, drugs, gambling, self-harm, and in and out of abusive relationships. My mom with these different men. Me, I was in a relationship with an alcoholic for 4 years, mentally and emotionally abusive. So when I started my coaching business, I not only wanted to have those tools and help in that way, I wanted to partner with a nonprofit to utilize my tools in that way and give back to those people. So I partnered with Safe House here in Las Vegas. It's domestic violence victims, mostly women and children. And so being in that environment as a kid and having the tools that I have, I wanted to be able to help those women and children through what they're going through right now. So I became a domestic violence victim advocate. So basically what that means is that I'm there to be their resource. Do they need help through grief? Do they need help? Maybe they just got out of a bad environment and they have nowhere else to go. So maybe they need housing, maybe they need food, maybe they need to get a new doctor, anything that they might need. I'm that resource and pointing them in the right direction and helping them through what they're going through at the same time.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, how can our listeners reach out to you?
The best way to reach out to me is my website. It's empoweringgrowthcoach.com. There you can find all my social media links to connect with me. You can find my phone number and email if you want to reach out to me. Again, empoweringgrowthcoach.com.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for sharing today and for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to meet you.
You too.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.